Yeah, it's in the chat, Kaz, so we're live now.
Okay, welcome everyone to this meeting of the Northumberland Agreed Syllabus Conference Working Group. It's lovely to see you all tonight. Thank you for coming. So I've had apologies from Chris Hudson, who won't be here tonight. So thank you for coming. Let's just have a look over the minutes from last time. Apologies that they were circulated a little bit later than usual. Too many plates spinning at the minute, I think. So if there was anything in there that you felt isn't a fair representation, please do just pop your hand up. Or if there are any issues, then we can address those. Joyce.
I wasn't included in the list of attendees, but I was there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You're on there now, Joyce.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? So for those who weren't here last time, so I'd given a little bit of, and I know the minutes, some of you who weren't here last time will have only got the minutes today. So I gave an update of the work that I'd done since the previous Agreed Syllabus Conference, and then we spent some time talking. Members were able to share their views on what they felt the strengths and the weaknesses of the current syllabus are. And the key issue that we were sort of drawing out were that the aims of the syllabus perhaps are not clear to all teachers, and the units don't align closely with the aims. So when I've been speaking to teachers, they've kind of felt that they've been pulled in two different directions and they've been struggling to bring that all together. So we talked about that, and then I fed back on the teacher consultation about teachers feeling that it's a bit overwhelming because there's so much of it and they're not really sure where to start. And we talked about how some have opted to buy in different resources. And so we need to think about how we're going to address that so that they understand the syllabus more fully and are able to use it. And also a number of members from faith, from the faith groups also mentioned that they felt that their faith wasn't particularly well represented perhaps in the units, and that they didn't feel that, they felt that a lot of reworking needed to be done. Obviously we didn't have representatives from all of the 6 major world faiths with us that last time. So if you, it's lovely to have Mariam and Bhakti Rasa representing Islam and Hinduism. And so if you have particular views, please do pass those on to me as well. Okay. Is everybody happy enough with those minutes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then any matters arising? In terms of the actions at the top, sorry, not at the top, but in section 4, the update from me, we talked again last time about the questionnaire, and I'd asked for any further feedback. I'd taken the feedback in the meeting, but if there was any further feedback, for it to come by email. I haven't had anything else, so I will just finalise that with Dave, and then that can go out to schools. Okay. Was there anything else arising from those minutes that anyone wants to raise?
I just had something that I wanted to bring up, which it was looking at one of the units around family life, and the way it was mentioned, it was parents, etc. But we know that there are children that are in care and looked after. And I think if that theme still stays, I think the wording around that needs to be more delicate and sensitive.
Okay, so broaden that perhaps to parents and carers, or
yes,
something like that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deanna. Great. Okay, thank you very much. So just looking to our next item of the agenda, and this was our real focus really for this afternoon, the next two items, which was, there will be some overlap between them. But I'd ask folk to go back and look at the core report. So that's the Commission on Religious Education. It took place a few years ago, and the report was launched, or the final report issued in 2018. And I'd ask folk to go back and have a look at that, and have a think about how we are going to bear those recommendations in mind as we move forward. No problem, Diana. As we move.
Hello, can you just hang on 1 minute, please?
Okay, fab. So how we're going to take those recommendations into account as we think about our next agreed syllabus, and then specifically to drill down to what our aims are going to be, because that's where some of the confusion, or a significant amount of the confusion, I think, with teachers at the moment, is that they don't feel they've really got a handle on the aims. And so in that sense, they're not truly able to fulfill the syllabus. Okay, so I'd circulated beforehand just a link to the document, and I know that you're all aware of it, and you've shared that with me before. And so I'd asked people specifically to look at pages 11 to 18, which were the 11 recommendations given by the Commission. See, some of those are more pertinent to us right now than others, but I'd be just really grateful to hear people's feedback on what you think. So if you want to speak, please just pop your hand up, and then I'll say your name and then you can speak. And otherwise, if you wouldn't mind, just if we have hands up so we're not speaking over one another, that will just make it easier. And you can just put your actual physical hand up, that's fine, don't worry, if you're not sure how to do an electronic hand up. And Ted's giving me a thumbs up, so that's brilliant. he's down with the reactions, that's fab.
Right. The core report, when it was first issued in 2018, and according to the later National Association report way back in later that year, confirmed that the core document wasn't a statutory document. Therefore, we should continue as per the previous procedure with the agreed syllabus conference, and that should be carried on as they were before. Has there been any change in that view that was presented by the National Associations of SACRI, or is it still the same?
No, it's still.
There's been no sort of further developments. I haven't been able to see any. I was just wanting to double check that.
There's been lots of work going on off the back of the core report, and Joyce has written a little piece for us for the newsletter, and she can jump in at any point if she wants to. But no, you're correct in that it's not a statutory document. However, it's an influential document, and it is definitely in the direction of travel that we want to be going in. So we want to bear that in mind. So you're right in terms of, so whichever recommendation it is, recommendation number 4, that we wouldn't call an ASC. Obviously, that's what we're doing right now. So, but that's sort of asking the broader questions about our feelings about religion and worldviews as a concept, and how we then incorporate that or otherwise into our RE syllabus.
I was just wondering if there'd been any change since then. No.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Okay, so it'd be great to hear from people. I don't want to pick on anyone, but do just jump in and tell me. Let's have a discussion together, because ultimately this is going to be your syllabus as members of Northumberland SACRI. Tell me what you think, and let's talk together about what you feel about these recommendations and how they should influence our decisions going forward. Joyce.
I don't know if everybody knows that I was a member of the Commission, and so all of these recommendations, I was party to them. I support them all. I'm not sure we always expressed ourselves as clearly as we might, but I have no sense of ownership of these recommendations. It was a document that was written very carefully, very thoroughly, but it is a document that is there for debate. So if anybody wants to say, I think all of those recommendations are absolute rubbish, please don't be polite. We want to hear as members of the Commission what people really think about it. And you're absolutely right, Ted, the legal situation hasn't changed at all. But what's really important for us is to look at the recommendations that are about what actually happens in classrooms. And so the recommendation about the national entitlement, I think, is the most important one of all. Some of it, from my perspective, is just what good RE is about and has been about for some time. Some of the recommendations, I think, are really, really radical and would change religious education beyond recognition. So I think the national entitlement is the nub of it all for agreed syllabuses conferences to consider.
Yeah. I think it's very, very important, though, that religious and non-religious worldviews should be recognised and the part that they play in life today, which is one of the main things that that report brought out. I think it's very important to recognise that, you know, things change over the years in so many ways, and we've got to look to embrace things that we're prepared to embrace in that change process. I think it's very important.
Thank you, Joyce. Thanks, Ted. Stuart, I think you had your hand up.
I'm just thinking, Kaz, you used the phrase "the core report is the direction of travel," and therefore, would it be a good idea to test the current agreed syllabus against these recommendations and see the extent to which it currently fulfills the direction of travel, and by doing that indicates the areas where we need to make some changes and adjustments to the agreed syllabus? I mean, I'm assuming, because nobody contradicted you, I'm assuming that there's a general agreement that the direction of travel is contained in these 11 recommendations.
Well, Joyce has definitely, she's opened it up for people to disagree. So if you do want to disagree, that's absolutely fine. When I say it's the direction of travel, in the sense that there is much discussion in the RE world about religion and worldviews off the back of this report, and there's been some work commissioned. There's been a Theos report, as you mentioned last time, Stuart, about worldviews and so on. In terms of what will happen to SACREs and whether they will become local advisory networks and all of that sort of thing, that's I have no idea what will happen there. But for us, obviously, in terms of thinking about the syllabus, that's probably on the back burner, and absolutely thinking about the national entitlement and what we want to do with that is probably where our focus should be. But you're absolutely right, Stuart, in terms of comparing. Hang on one second, Ted. Stuart, were you going to just come back on?
Just for clarification, really, with Joyce probably. I'm just wondering whether the entitlement to religious education is something that will apply to all schools, irrespective of their designation. If it is, obviously I welcome it wholeheartedly.
Do you want me to respond to that, Kaz? The idea the Commission had was that every single school in the country should follow the national entitlement. So community schools, foundation schools, and voluntary controlled schools. We had very positive feedback from the independent school sector, saying that they like those ideas. Where it gets very complicated is where schools have trust deeds and voluntary aided schools. But the Commission's view generally was that religion and worldviews should be taught. And additionally, what people wanted to teach about their own faith, their own, that was contained within their own trust deeds, that would be additional. So for example, when I was the RE inspector for Bradford, there was a girls' voluntary aided Muslim school, and they taught the agreed syllabus for Bradford, but additionally, they did Islamic studies. Yeah. So it was that sort of model that we were hoping everybody would take on board, and that academies would have to demonstrate that they were following the recommendations, the requirements of the national entitlement. So yes, it was with every single school in the country in mind.
Thank you, Stuart. Deanna, you'd had your hand up, and Ted, did you want to say something as well?
Just one of the observations that are in regard to the makeup of the local advisory network that you're now proposing is this involvement of governors, school governors, and school leaders. I think that's something that appears to be missing currently, and I think that would be a good move, because they can influence so many things within the various schools, and I think that's a good recommendation, and I would fully support that sort of movement.
Great, thanks, Ted. So there's a vote from Ted for you, Joyce. There. Okay, so if we now focus specifically on the syllabus and what, because right now having school leaders on our SACRE isn't going to particularly impact what we're going to talk about tonight. We can focus on that. And Deanna, what would you like to say?
Well, I was just going to suggest that certainly from what Chris said last time, that particularly with something like Judaism and maybe also with Christianity, that because they're very old, often there's a focus on the characters like Abraham and Moses, and not on the people living in the 21st century, because I think there was a comment about it isn't up to date for pupils in the 21st century, that it is a lived religion now. And I think that's hugely important for all of the religions. It's how we live it.
Absolutely.
Yes, those people are important and they impact on some of the stories. But as I say, the importance of living it.
Absolutely, Deanna, and I think that's the heart of what so much of this discussion is about. So I think maybe perhaps point 3 in the national entitlement, the ways in which patterns of beliefs, expression and belonging may change across and within, locally, nationally, globally, both historically and in contemporary times. I think absolutely. Thank you, Deanna.
And just to add something to that as well, I'm on this website for RE teachers, and one of the things that bothers me, and I know that it's actually a point of detail, but I do think it's hugely important that the children, probably year 9, something like that, they learn about Judaism first and then the Holocaust. I've seen so many teachers saying, oh, well, we're doing two lessons on the Holocaust. You can't do it in isolation. You need to study Judaism before you have anything about that. And of course, sometimes it's done in history. So I don't know how relevant that is to other faiths, but it's very relevant to us.
Thank you. Joyce.
I think what we're trying to do when we reviewed the last syllabus, what we try to do is embrace many of the things that we find within this document, certainly in regard to the worldviews and the various other religions. Whether we've achieved what we originally set out to achieve and cover all the angles is another matter. Perhaps many things have changed since our last syllabus report, and we need to develop new guidelines, I think, for many of the religions and worldviews, so we're getting a message across on the way it was originally intended.
Okay, thank you. Joyce, you had your hand up.
To take that point from Ted, Northumberland's is one of the few syllabuses I've come across that actually includes the term worldviews when it's talking about religious education. So I think that's a very positive thing. But the difference between what Northumberland syllabus says and what the Commission says is the letter S. Your syllabus, this syllabus, talks about religions and worldviews, and the Commission very deliberately talked about religion and worldviews. because the thing we want to avoid most of all is the idea that you just add in a couple of other worldviews, possibly humanism, possibly existentialism, whatever, and then you're doing it. We wanted something that was radically different, not broadening the subject, but deepening the subject. So we don't just want to add in a few more isms, we want a much different study of religion and worldviews as a whole. And it's the second of the points in the national entitlement that I think is the most important thing in the whole of the commission. I don't suppose everyone would agree with that who was on the commission, but for me it was. And it's those four overarching concepts of religion, worldviews, secularity and spirituality. And what we're asking is that those four concepts are the fundamental pillars, if you like, of all of the teaching that should happen in religious education. Now, I think it'll take a long time for us to get there, but I don't think any syllabus has ever taken children's conceptual understanding of those four areas and constructed learning around them. So that's the second difference between the existing syllabus and the national entitlement. There are three others that I think are important. The syllabus talks about difference between religions and children respecting those differences. The Commission is very clear that the commonality between religions and worldviews should be explored as well. We're very clear, in fact, it's the first point on our national entitlement, that religions and worldviews should be addressed through what is central to them. And the Northumberland syllabus takes Christianity. Now, last time Chris said that the crux of Christianity had been omitted and hadn't succeeded in doing that. But the other five religions are lumped together and treated as a group. You can't take what is central to each religion if you treat them all the same. And you certainly can't do that if you're going to explore other worldviews as well. And the last point I think that is particularly important is that the Commission was very keen to take up the point that Deanna's just made about religions as they are lived now, but religions and worldviews that have fuzzy edges, that are fluid, they're changing, they're organic, and they have developed together, sometimes in competition with each other, sometimes alongside, sometimes in a developmental sense. But religions aren't separate entities. There are connections between all of them. And so it's a big, broad subject that needs to be explored and understood. But to go back to what I think is the most important point, and that is those overarching concepts which children need to understand if they are to understand the nature of religion and belief and worldviews and people's values in the 21st century. I think I've probably said more than enough for now, Kaz.
Thank you, Joyce. That's really helpful. Does anyone want to respond to that? Stuart?
Interestingly, what Joyce has just said takes us into the next item on the agenda, which is the aims that have been that currently apply to the agreed syllabus. And if we could have a set of aims which is greatly reduced in words and sets out those four objectives within those aims, I think that will provide us with a really good platform on which to build a syllabus that is truly inclusive. What
Thank you, Stuart. And I liked you noticing the fuzzy edges between agenda items there as well. That was great. What do others feel about that then? So Joyce was drawing our attention to, so if you're not sure what I'm talking about, we're on the list of recommendations in the core report. Recommendation 2 is about the national entitlement. And on page 12 of the document then, it says pupils must be taught, and it has a list of 9 little points. And we're talking about point 2 there on page 12, where it says pupils must be taught about key concepts, including religion, secularity, spirituality, and worldview. And that worldviews are complex, diverse, and plural, which really feeds into what Deanna was saying. What do other folk think about that as a kind of foundation, those four kind of overarching concepts? Back to you, Ressa.
Yeah, my contribution is just a general one. I like Stuart's proposal that we could look at the agreed syllabus in relationship to the core report. And the more I hear from Joyce, the more I become convinced that it might be a very profitable exercise to do that. And in the process of doing that, we might find that we inadvertently, if you like, address some of the concerns that came back from the feedback from teachers in schools and so on and so forth. It sounds like it could be a profitable exercise, and also a way for ourselves of becoming more familiar with the core report, having an application for it against the agreed syllabus, and bringing the agreed syllabus hopefully more into line with what teachers might be able to apply in their teaching.
Thank you. Okay, just giving space in case anyone else wants to say anything else. Okay.
The only thing I would say is the list of recommendations from this report I would support them wholeheartedly, because it gives us everything. I think it brings everything we've been thinking about over the last 5 or 6 years or more, brings it into perspective, and I think it's worthy of consideration, as Dr. Rasha has just said that. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Ted. So if we, so both Stuart and Dr. Ressa have made that suggestion of looking at our current agreed syllabus against the national entitlement. Joyce has outlined a number of things that are not in line with the core report. So religion and worldviews, whereas the current Northumberland syllabus says religions, plural. Those 4 concepts that we've just been mentioning, which are different to and not included in the current syllabus. The focus on commonality, which isn't there, and that's something that Chris has raised over the last few meetings. Actually, he's felt quite strongly about that, Chris Hudson. And I'm just going to pull up. He sent me an email with his apologies about things that he felt needed to be focused on, but he specifically said earlier discussion of differences in opinions within and between faiths and beliefs. We don't agree even within our own faiths, but we need to model sort of social cohesion, dialogue between faiths, and also to enable our pupils to have those kind of interfaith discussions. That was something he felt strongly about as well. And this talking about getting to the heart of what those particular people who follow those worldviews feel is central to their worldview. And so we've already had views about both Christianity and Buddhism in the current syllabus, not particularly representing that. We talked last time about how the way that religions other than Christianity are lumped together, and units are written for reception to year 4 and then year 5 to year 8, which is clearly not going to be able to get to the heart of that, what we're trying to get to the heart of. And then this idea of fluid and changing and up to date and diversity within, and then being complex, that I feel at the moment from the teachers I've been speaking to, that is not necessarily reflected in classrooms. So all of those things, I would say, are things already that we've looked at that compared to the current syllabus are not in line necessarily with core. The key thing really is getting our aims right, isn't it, in terms of where we're trying to go. And so in comparing the national entitlement here, really what we're saying is comparing that to the current aims that we've got, because the aims is the bit that's statutory. All of the units of work are non-statutory, so they are provided as a supplement to teachers. But the reality of the situation is that teachers are not reading the statutory document and are going straight to the unit. So we need to do something about that to support teachers. And what the feedback they've given to me is, so in our current syllabus on page 8, where it outlines the aims, we have 3 overarching, the A, B and C. So the know about and understand a range of religions and worldviews. Then B, express ideas and insights about the nature, significance and impact of these religions and worldviews. And then C, acquire and deploy the skills needed to engage seriously with these religions and worldviews. But then within each of those, there are 3 subheadings. So essentially we have 12 pieces of information that teachers are trying to grapple with. And the reality is, I've probably spoken one-to-one now with 20 teachers, and none of them is using these aims. So we need to address that. And I think, as Stuart says, making it so that they can actually access it. And so that would be where I would suggest we go next, to think about what the core report is suggesting in terms of the entitlement. We can have a look at the aims that we have if you want to do a comparison, but moving towards deciding on some aims is where we need to go in terms of making progress. Deanna.
Kaz, you've spoken to 20 teachers. How many primary and how many secondary?
1 secondary. I've been struggling to get secondaries to engage.
Yeah.
3 middle.
Of course, you've got middle in Northumberland, I'd forgotten. Yeah.
1 special, but I'm speaking with another colleague from a special school next week as well. And then the rest are primary or first. So, and it's the primaries who are really desperate, as you know, for the clarity. The secondaries tend to have at least 1 specialist, and that person tends to, from experience, have a clear view of what they want to do. Whereas the primary, a lot of them are just saying they just feel a bit lost. They're not really sure what to do, and almost all of them didn't know that there were aims that they were supposed to be fulfilling. So,
I mean, sorry, I've interrupted you. I mean, I think one of the things that's come out of the core, what was it called, the core report, is the value of RE. And I have found in my experience, not necessarily in Northumberland, but elsewhere, that sometimes they don't know who to give the lead to in RE. And sometimes it's out of convenience. It's the person in charge of nursery or year 1 who, and they don't have the depth of knowledge. This is the problem for them when they're looking at so many different faiths, because you've got religion, but you've also got that word faith, which doesn't come into those 4, and worldviews as well. So I can understand their concern. And just to pick up from what was said last time, I think by Elizabeth, about the lack of teacher training. I know Phil did do a lot of it, but it was with individual schools who invited him in, where they saw that there was stuff lacking. But I think that's something that needs to be addressed as well. So am I going off at a tangent or not? I hope not.
Well, I absolutely agree that CPD is something that is really important.
Yeah.
And yes, having looked back at some of the previous minutes from SACRI meetings and so on, it does appear to be that those schools that have asked for support were the ones who have the CPD. But of course, that requires somebody who's keen, doesn't it? And it's those schools who aren't asking who are probably in the most need. And so what can we do to address that? So it's a wider question about how we launch the syllabus. I think you're absolutely right, Deanna. And you're right as well about no matter which class the teacher happens to be teaching, it is unlikely at primary level that they will be a specialist. Some you know, really work very, very hard to become specialists and to really improve their knowledge. Others really aren't too sure where to start. And then in a small school, if you're coordinating 5 subjects, then RE is just one of those. You know, in a primary, obviously, if you're teaching 10 subjects, then we have to be realistic about what they can manage, but then what support are we putting in place?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Deanna. Okay, so we haven't heard, I don't want to put you on the spot, Mariam, but please do jump in as and when if there's anything you want specifically to contribute. So I'm just thinking about what's the best way to make a comparison here between, so obviously Stuart and Bactiras have suggested, and I think it's absolutely a good idea to think about what the differences are between the core and what we have. Why I started with the core was that we could have a think about what's going on nationally in RE so that we can bring that into then our local expression of RE. The document that our current aims is based on, is now a number of years old and had a bit of a mixed reception at the time, I think. And so to see, it's your syllabus, and but I would recommend that you think carefully about whether you would want to continue with those aims, or whether it would be best to focus on the national entitlements and take some of those ideas forward. Whatever happens in terms of supplementary and non-statutory guidance and documentation this time, they really do need to be in line with whatever aims we focus on. But if we're hearing from teachers that these 12 are too many and that they don't understand, then that's something that we need to address. So if anybody has I'm very open to anybody who wants to jump in with what we should do now and how you want to do that comparison. Go on, Stuart, good man.
I think what the current aims suffer from is the age-old problem of deciding what are aims and what are objectives. And in my view, there's no reason why anybody should share this. In my view, the aim should be concise, brief, and engaging. I'm interested in some of the words that are in the current aim to express ideas and insights about the nation's significance of. And you can add the words in there. But I think one, I was going to say brief, concise statement of the aim. In other words, what do we want to end up with in relation to religion and worldviews, and young people's, students' ability as a product of the process. And I mean, I think the entire document suffers from too long-windedness, which is a deterrent. I think that's been identified. But if we could start in the way that we mean to go on, to be concise and precise about what we mean, we should start with the aims, and the aim should be a single statement.
Thank you, Stuart. Joyce.
I think Stuart's absolutely right. Differentiating between aims and objectives is crucial if you're going to have a document teachers can work with. And aims do need to be succinct. Objectives need to be measurable. You need to be able to say to teachers, this is what you want to explore with children in the classroom. And they then become your assessment objectives so that you know at the end whether the children have learned them or not. I'm not very keen on outcomes personally. I don't think you should try to dictate what children will think at the end of anything, but what you actually want them to learn and how you can measure whether they've learned it well or not. So the objectives are a different kettle of fish altogether from the aims. You'll notice the core report does not attempt to set out aims for RE. I'm not quite sure why we didn't, except we just ran out of time in the end and we were juggling so many balls. And in a way, it was an error because during the first year, so up to sort of December 2019, I did a lot of talks around the country, including coming to you before I was a member of Northumberland Sacre. And time again, people challenged me about what we used to call AT2, children learning from. And a number of people said, why didn't you include it? And I was taken aback. And I said, we did. And they said, no, you didn't. It isn't there anywhere. And we clearly failed to make that clear enough that it's just a given. When you are enabling children to learn, it is about the whole child, not just their little brains. It's not just about cognitive development. It is about spiritual development, moral development, all the rest of it. And that was what we just took for granted as commissioners. But the fact that we didn't make that specific enough gave some people ammunition to criticize the report that we'd neglected AT2. All we were doing was something that was academic and rigorous, and it was all about religious studies, really, not about children. So getting an aim that is both about what we really want children to be able to engage with critically and how we want them to develop as growing individuals is something that is really, really important. And if you don't have that balance, teachers can very easily neglect what we used to call attainment target 2, the learning from religion, because actually it's hard. 81 is pretty hard, but at least there are bits of information an unconfident teacher can share. Getting children to explore ideas and opinions and values and to be critical in a respectful but objective way, it's hard to get them right. So somehow our aims have to balance those two areas of learning in a very concise way. And then I think we can work on the objectives and use them for assessment, ideally. I don't think that answers your question, Kaz, but...
Thank you, Joyce. It does take us a step further down the road. Thank you. Back to Rasa. He's going to tell us the aim now. He's going to come off mute and he's going to sort that out for us.
No, it's an objective related point, actually, just following up from Joyce's point there about AT2, what used to be called. And one of the reasons why, at least why I've heard some thinkers, some scholars express why it's difficult to include is because it's hard to measure. You know, when we're talking about objectives and how they should be measurable, then AT2 is much more elusive in terms of being able to measure it, so they say, than AT1 areas are. And that's a challenge, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
Great. So is there anybody who'd be willing to just throw a few ideas out there about what you, as a member of Northumberland Sacre and an agreed syllabus conference, want to achieve with this syllabus? What is it that we want our children to be learning and developing in and critically engaging with? You know, if you had to, so Stuart has given us the challenge of a key, concise aim. What we need now is for some people to offer some, and for us then to discuss and develop and hone them and all the rest of it. And what we talk about now doesn't need to be the finished product. So please don't feel that just because you haven't got it all tied up that you can't contribute with some ideas. So what for you gets to the essence of what our subject is about and what we're trying to achieve? Go on, Ted.
I think that the three aims that were originally in there, I think that the agreed syllabus the last time, the three main aims were just know about and understand the range of religious and worldviews, so that they can then you go on and ask a few questions. And the same thing applied to the being able to express the ideas now. So what would Stuart prefer to see in there rather than those three main objectives? Because there were just three main aims with some supplementary explanations or questions thereafter. We try to embrace all the things that we thought would we would be able to see from those people trying to achieve those aims. You know.
So I'm not going to put Stuart on the spot, but as and when he'd like to respond, that's absolutely fine. But if others want to, so Ted, sort of going back to the original aims there. Again, I'm not sure that they get to the heart of what we've just been discussing in terms of the core recommendations and that idea, particularly of Deanna talking about the lived reality. I'm not sure how well that's expressed explicitly through those aims, and that idea of having sort of the fuzzy edges and the fluid and complex, and the idea that that somebody, just because they belong perhaps to a particular religious faith, doesn't necessarily mean they will adhere to the textbook beliefs or the textbook practices. And I think that's where we're trying to sort of get to and help young people to perhaps not to study religions as monoliths, as this is what this person thinks and this is what this person thinks and so on, but to have a much better understanding in our kind of complex plural society that we live in, and particularly for our young people in Northumberland who perhaps don't encounter a lot of that plurality, that we want to make sure they have that opportunity. So what do others think? Go on, be brave. Going back to you, Ressa.
I suppose one thing that Stuart pointed out about aims, which I find compelling, is that they should be engaging. And I think specifically we want them to be engaging for teachers who are actually going to teach the syllabus. Yeah. And therefore there should be some kind of dialogue with the teachers included in the aims. You know, they could at least be name checked or referred to in the aims, that these aims are meant for the teachers who will be teaching the subject, with the pupils in mind, obviously, or with the pupils at the center. But the syllabus is actually, it's meant for the benefit of the teachers and as an assistance to the teachers. So somehow to engage the teachers, to attract them, to appeal to them, and make that explicit in the aims.
And back to you, Russ, before you mute again, what would you like, you know, what do you think you'd like our young people to be achieving through their RE studies? What is our aim? Go on. When you're teaching an RE lesson, what do you want your young people to get out of it?
Yeah, I want them to get a comprehensive knowledge of the subject, and also a personal connection with the subject, to identify the relevance of the subject for them as individuals, as well as having a comprehensive understanding of what the breadth and depth of the subject is.
Thank you very much. Fabulous.
I would agree with what Dr. Susha just said there. We struggled with the words to put into there with the aims that we actually laid out in the original 2016 version. We really struggled to identify and pull out those important points that Dr. Archer has just referred to.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhakti Rasa. I know I did put you on the spot there, but that was brilliant. So, you know, so the idea of getting that knowledge, but also that our young people see that it's relevant, because that's absolutely what we want. Stuart, is that a hand up?
Yeah, I'm just thinking that Bhakti Rasa has, in a sense, changed our perspective on this. That the way I'm reading it, and perhaps I'm not alone, is I read it as a document which refers to what happens to young people, when in actual fact what it is, or should be, is a tool for teachers, and for them to be able to recognise, on picking up the document, this is something that's going to help me. This is going to be something that is going to support me in my endeavour to inform, advise, inspire young people to understand themselves in relation to as Joyce says, well, as the core report says, religion, secularity, spirituality, and worldview. I think Dr. Ross has just shifted our perspective a little bit there.
Thank you, Stuart. And well done, Bhakti Rasa. He's pushing us forward to think even more. But absolutely, if this document doesn't work for teachers, then we've missed our core purpose. Okay. Deanna, were you wanting to?
Yeah, I think what the language, the words that Stuart's just used, inform, inspire, could be part of the aims. Those words could be used. I don't know quite how the rest of the sentence would go, but I think they're two important words. And also engage.
Yeah,
because you need to engage the teachers, as Bhakti said, in order for them to make the lesson engaging, informative and inspiring.
Thank you. Absolutely. And this is what we want. We want really engaging RE, don't we, for our young people? Great. Stuart. Just
picking up on that, is it therefore time for us to create an in-house competition? Well, perhaps competition is a bad word, but invite everybody to write their version of an aim for the new agreed syllabus. And then we can distill from that a version that meets all of our expectations.
Great. And what's the prize, Stuart?
I would say dinner, but COVID regulations prescribe that, I think.
Thank you, Stuart. Mariam, were you wanting to speak? I see you've just come back. You've come on camera.
Yeah, sorry, Kaz. I've been driving for the past hour, so I have been listening, but I've not been able to talk. But I need to jump off now. What I'll do, I'll review the core report for the recommendations because I felt a bit lost. I couldn't look at what you guys are talking about whilst driving, so I do apologise for that. And then anything that's in the emails, like the follow-up email, I'll respond to them. I do apologise for not being able to attend the past couple of meetings. They weren't in my diary and I was busy at the same time, so it's been a bit hard for us because I am fasting as well at the moment. So I'm focusing on Ramadan at the moment. But I'll start contributing more regularly via email, just to make it easier for the communication for my part, if that makes sense.
No problem at all. Thank you, Mariam.
So
and
jump off now.
Ramadan Mubarak to you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, and commitment to the cause there while she's driving as well. Okay, so Stuart has set down a challenge there for us. Does everybody know how to use the chat function on here? So at the bottom of the
what
chat,
did you say that, guys?
does everyone know how to use the chat function on Zoom? So you can type in. So if you go along the bottom where it says mute and stop video and so on, there's a little speech bubble that says chat. And I'm just going to seize this moment and ask you to type something in there that gets to the heart of what you think the aim of RE and our syllabus should be. Actually, Russ is just saying hi. So I'm going to give you a minute or two, have a little think, type some ideas in there, and then we can gather and begin to distill perhaps.
I'm reminding you, take medicine. I'm reminding you, take medicine.
There's lots of typing, but not many submissions yet. So we won't hold you to it. Don't worry. If you change your mind later, it's okay.
Oops.
Oh, they're coming in now. That's great. In a moment, I'll read them out so that anybody who can't see them that well can hear them. I'll give another minute for anyone else who wants to submit an idea. Okay, so thank you. We've got some ideas to work with now, which is great. So well done, Stuart, for suggesting a competition. That's excellent. I'm not sure who's going to be the judge, but maybe we'll put a tender out for that, for an outside party. So at the top there, I've suggested perhaps something like to be able to hold balanced and informed conversations about religion, belief and worldviews. Then Deanna suggested to inform, inspire and engage. So she's got those great words in, pupils about the relevance of religion and worldviews in the 21st century. Then we have Stuart, who suggested to provide students with the information and resources and knowledge and skills to express ideas and insights about the nature and significance of religion, worldviews, secularity and spirituality. So taking into account there that suggestion number 2 in the national entitlement. And Joyce has suggested to enable pupils to engage critically with and reflect on the key concepts of religion, worldviews, secularity and spirituality, recognising their complex, diverse and plural natures in the 21st century. So getting all the words from number 2 in there, that's great. And then back to Rasa. Our syllabus aims to assist and guide teachers in providing a comprehensive and engaging knowledge of RE for their pupils, which pupils will find personally relevant and informative to their lived experience. Okay, great. So there's a set of ideas and I'll take those away because I think, you know, we've come to time now. We're at 5 o'clock and I don't want to keep people all evening, as exciting as it might be to talk about our aims all evening. we probably could do that. So I'm going to take these away, have a think about them, and I don't feel that we're necessarily going to get a lot further just now in terms of trying to make a decision, and we need to go away and reflect perhaps on that, unless anyone else has got anything they'd like to add right now on that.
Just to say that in several of the people's comments, a lot of the words are the same.
Mm.
So, you know, some have gone into more depth than others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is good that we're moving towards the same page. That's great choice.
Just to say, the first time I did this sort of exercise was just after the 1988 Education Act, when 5 of us were seconded to write the new agreed syllabus for Coventry. And it took us all day to write one sentence, which was basically coming up with the aim of RE.
Yeah.
And we called it a profile component in those days. And I think we'll need to, if you can go away and come up with the best of the ideas that we have done, we'll then need to look at it again and again and again to hone it and work on it, because we will keep on changing our minds and want to give emphasis here and there. So I think this could be quite a long process, but I think it's brilliant that we've got as far as we have today. So.
Great. Thank you, Joyce. Back to you, Rasa.
I wonder if it's just me, but maybe many of our suggestions are still quite wordy, including my own, for aims in order to have the impact that we might like them to have. That's just one comment. And then would it be possible for you to share them on to us, Caroline, so that we'll have a record of them all ourselves? Because once
yes, of course, yeah. So right now, if you want to do that, you could literally copy and paste it from the chat if you want to do that. But I will do that and save it, and I can send that out as well with the when we send the minutes out, and we'll get them out sooner this time. Yeah. Stuart.
Can I just say that I think one of the things that is important is back to Rasa's point, which is that in the distilled version of the aim, there is implicit an invitation to teachers to see this as their own.
Mm. Mm. Yes, and hopefully through our launch and our CPD program, that I would hope that we can get a bit of energy and momentum going through that. Absolutely. Thank you, Stuart. Great. Well, thank you for your contributions this evening. You haven't been able to just sit back and listen tonight. I'm sorry about that, but I'm not sorry as well, in that this is your syllabus and this is our syllabus that we're working on together for Northumberland, and we want the very best for our young people, so that the voice, we need to hear all of your voices. Thank you so much for coming and for your time. Thank you for thinking about it beforehand, because that just makes all the difference when we do gather in our meeting. In terms of actions, next steps, so I will take these away and I'll send them out to you as they are, so that you can think and reflect and so on. I'll try to hone them down and then present that next time, and you can have a little think about that. I'll get that out to you before our next meeting so you can consider, and then we can be thinking about what else we want in our statutory section. As we've discussed previously, that our syllabus is very long, and Stuart has has alluded to that this evening, that it's perhaps more wordy than it needs to be at times. I enjoyed the use of the term deterrent with reference to how long some of it is. So we need to have a think about what we want to, what do we absolutely need to have in there in our statutory programme of study and our statutory section that we absolutely want teachers to read. We all know that teachers are very busy. Those of us who have been or are teachers know the reality of that. So it needs to be something that they can access and that is useful to them, as Bhakti Rasa has really reminded us this afternoon. So do be thinking about that. What do we want to have in our statutory programs of study, and what do we, and in terms of last time as well, some people were raising questions about the placement of particular religions in particular key stages, and how some get much more of a focus than others, and so on. I'll send you the census data for Northumberland over, so you can have a little think about that, about whether we want to specify or not, and so on. But those are the sorts of things that I'm thinking about next. But if there are other ideas that you have that you think would be good to talk about in our next meeting, then please do. And our intention is to have a full agreed syllabus conference meeting where we record straight after the next SACRI meeting, which is the 7th of July. But the next meeting of this group is Monday, the 24th of May at 4 o'clock. Okay, so if you haven't got that one down, it's Monday, the 24th of May, and I will see you in Zoom land again in a month's time. But in the meantime, do drop me a line with anything else you're thinking of. But thank you for your contributions this evening. It's been great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Everyone.
Have a good evening.